Hello, 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 fellow humans.
Well, welcome to the Rise of Humanness Podcast, where we explore what it means to stay human in a world increasingly run by algorithms, bots, and machines. I'm Mike Schindler.
And I'm Chris Nolan.
And together, we're going to show you how to stay absolutely powerful.
Stay human.
And rise and thrive in the age of AI.
Yes, and even show you how to beat the bots. Well, let's rise.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of humanness in the age of AI. Stay curious, stay human, let's rise.
Nichol, I understand that you're pretty brilliant, so we're super excited to have you on the show. So, and Chris doesn't want to miss a beat. So he's always like, listen,
I don't want to miss one word that Nichol says. Not one word.
I know. It's so true. It's so true.
Should we blast off?
Well, yeah, but let me just prep her a little bit so she knows what she's in for. So, Nichol, we've had some pretty amazing folks on the show. You being one of them. We're super excited. Chris and I love the free flow. So if you want to go deep down a rabbit hole, totally fine. Okay. We love to have fun. So hopefully, we just got to jump in.
Well, there's a couple of things. It's sort of like, I think I should put down the step and repeat then, because since you came through SHRM, it was sort of like a future of work type thing. But if we're going to go down any rabbit holes, then I can't do it with branding. So I'll just take it.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to make Nichol appear out of mid-air.
Yes.
It's going to happen. She's going to appear out of mid-air.
Mike, now. We've taken down the step and repeat.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Hello, 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 fellow humans and bots tuning in to learn our secrets. Welcome back to the Rise of Humanness Podcast. I'm Chris Nolan.
And I am Mike Schindler. Together, we are going to show you how to stay human, how to stay powerful.
Well, and I'm going to say stay human again.
I mean, it's so, so, so important.
We're absolutely thrilled to have a powerhouse guest with us, Nichol Bradford. She's a pioneer in human-centered technology and one of the most forward-thinking minds in this humanness space.
Yeah, she's also the executive in residence for AI plus human enablement at the Society for Human Resources Management. She's also the co-founder of the Naremia Collective. Did I say that correct?
Naremia.
Naremia. Okay, the Naremia Collective. And she's the chairman and co-founder of the Transformative Tech Lab.
Yep, she's also an investor. And if that's not enough, she has a new conference coming up called Human Tech Week, which we'll talk about. Nichol, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you, Nichol.
We just had your friend Ross and Dawson on last week.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's terrific.
I love Ross.
So let's dig in right away with Nichol. You've had a fascinating career journey from leading in the gaming industry, becoming to a go-to voice for the human-centered technology in the age of AI. So share a little bit about your background and how your early experience helped shape your passion for how humans flourish in this new tech age.
Well, I've always been deeply curious about people, and a big part of it came from when I was young, actually being quite shy. And so really trying to figure out like where I fit in, how I fit in. And so I became a student of myself and a student of people. Mm-hmm. And that plus a lot of Star Trek.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
He just lit up. He's like,
I did.
Really?
Keep going. Well, totally. Just keep going.
What I loved about Star Trek was I loved the freedom that science and technology had given human beings. And I loved that, it was a world that was, a meritocracy in many ways, that human beings had decided that we were all on the same team and really for the most part, and really our business was exploring and helping people no matter how many arms or legs they had across the universe. And so that really sort of captured my attention and sparked a love of science and technology at a very young age. And then that plus being really curious about people and, always wanting to help people and also, interested in human growth and development, for my own journey, all of that came together into being really intrigued by technology that helps humans be more human.
That's so great. Mike,
I so love that.
did you know Mike wants to do a Captain Kirk University?
I do. That's my dream, is Captain Kirk University. Think about it. I mean, Nichol, he traveled the planet, to your point, right? I mean, he explored new cultures. He brought the human in, the hunch piece into the equation, right? Like logic would say one thing and Captain Kirk would be like, I think I'm going to go down this other route, and Spock and him would have these debates. Brilliant. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, like, you had this like epiphany, like this pivotal moment at a retreat. You talked about this, like, kind of walk us, it shifted your perspective. So how did that shift your perspective?
So before that retreat, I was in video games and I was operating World of Warcraft in China, as well as all of the other Blizzard properties. And I decided to go to a meditation retreat, and I went to the retreat. At that time, it wasn't, I would say, to be very honest, it was more about collecting an experience. Like other people collect stuff. I was a collector of experiences.
Cool.
And so it was more about collecting experience than looking for something to happen to me, for me. And instead, what happened was, something that isn't super common. It happens at retreats, but it isn't the most common thing, is that I had a very deep spiritual experience in that I felt the web of life that connects all of us. I felt in meditation, just air. I saw sort of like in short, basically, I had a taste of non-dual reality, meaning that I saw how we were all connected. And I felt, I'd been lonely much of my life, and I didn't feel lonely anymore. And I also was, one of the things that also happened was that I had my inner chatter disappeared. So the voice in our heads that tells us that we're not good enough or young enough or strong enough or rich enough or, like whatever, blank enough, that disappeared. I actually didn't have any internal chatter for about 4 to 5 months before it came back. And without that voice saying anything, I, found that I wasn't afraid. And when you're not afraid, you're just naturally very happy. So I felt like an extraordinary level of happiness. I felt completely connected to everyone and everything. And I was fearless. And my reaction to that was, imagine what we could solve as a species if we could all feel that, if we all had that sort of, if we all had that, just fearlessness, happiness, and the ability to feel how we are all connected, that, what matters for you actually matters for me. Your well-being, is my well-being, and vice versa. Then, many of the problems facing humans are not a matter of resource. It's really a matter of conviction. And so, everything from cleaning up our home planet to, all of the things that we would like and aspire to do, if we could all have that space or taste that space, we would get our affairs in order in very short order. And so also, because I had the background and the love of technology and that I had before, I am very clear that technology is the thing that makes things accessible, affordable, available. And so my first big idea was leverage technology to make meditation accessible to everyone. And so remember, this was in 2013. In 2014, Headspace was a meetup in London, and Calm hadn't been founded yet. So, it was pretty radical at the time. So I came back to the US with that as my intention. I moved to San Francisco because it has the highest density of people interested in both neuroscience and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I started a community around technology for this type of thing. But it became very clear to me back then, meditation, like this is a long time ago, so almost 11 years ago, meditation was still woo-woo and something that maybe you did at the end of your yoga class. And it wasn't completely mainstream yet, though it was starting to really get out there through the work of Richie Davidson and mindfulness-based stress reduction being accepted by the VA and hospitals as an intervention. So it was making its move into validated, into the validated spaces, but it was still a little early. And so I thought, well, not everyone's going to meditate. And people saw meditation as strictly spiritual in the US at that point. So it was like, not everyone's going to meditate. Well, what about the benefits of meditation? And that's mental, emotional, and social health. Meditation, can improve outcomes in all three of those areas. And so then I said, well, instead of asking everyone to meditate and using technology to make it so that it was easy for them, what about using technology to support really any interventions that work towards mental, emotional, and social health for humans? And then once you get into that, when humans have mental, emotional, and social health, then the next thing comes, you go from the I to the we. And what are we doing together? And so that puts you into collaboration and connection. And once you get into collaboration and connection, how it actually works, then that puts you into performance and, how good we are at everything. And then after that, you end up in purpose. And so it sort of is this sort of evolution, of a person. It's the healing, the growing, and the thriving. And so I spent the last decade, 11 years now, oh my goodness, really sort of being a bit of a truffle pig around all of the ways that you can measure human well-being, and then all of the ways that you can use technology to measure it, to stimulate it, to enhance it. And so that makes me, one of the people that probably has, the broadest range of understanding from, microbiome all the way to, scent,
Wow.
as to like how you can use technology for human growth and development.
It was like a spiritual expansion.
So I want to know where the retreat was. Like,
You know-
was this in Sedona?
So my retreat was in Japan.
Okay.
The Goenka system it's Vipassana Buddhism. So it's Buddhism, Vipassana, Burmese or Myanmar. And then there's two main schools down that lineage. One is Goenka, the other one is Mahasi style. And basically where that came from is, after the Buddha passed or transitioned and his closest people moved across Asia, they went to different countries, which were actually different kingdoms, and started teaching. And so two branches, it's evolved and changed and everything. But I was in a Goenka style retreat, which is a Myanmar / Burmese lineage. And so that's where I had that first experience.
So cool. Wow. That's really great. So I might even leap to one of our questions here it was a spiritual experience. And, one of the things that our mission is, we see AI as an expansive and as an evolving and an elevating quality to humanness, like Star Trek, proto. So maybe you can talk about human mesh. I think that came at this time too. So maybe weave that in. So you can even go out 5, 10, 20 years past AGI, past ASI. What is the rise of humanness in the age of AI? How do you see it expanding human value?
Well,
Easy question, I know.
I don't know if we can go out 20 years yet.
Good.
Yeah.
Because everything, how things turn out have a great deal to do with what we do with the next 5 to 10 years and the choices that we make and the priorities that we have.
Right.
So, one of the things that, there's what I think is interesting. So I'll tell you also, so how I came to SHRM and, and how I came to what I'm doing in AI around human AI enablement and human computer interfaces and all of the work that I'm doing around also looking at how AI gets adopted in organizations, which means it's up against people and culture and, with goals and outcomes. And part of it is that AI is just the newest technology because, mobile and sensors and a bunch of things. And just this generation of AI, we sort of stand on the shoulders of machine learning and predictive AI. And really what generative AI is doing is allowing for deep personalization. And that's exciting for me because human transformation always needed personalization.
Yeah.
Like growth always needs to be, Michael's protocol delivered to him in the way that will actually get him to do the behavior change that he wants to.
That's right. 100%.
Yeah. We have an incredible opportunity to make the kind of world that we want to. But what was interesting was that, I've been in this space for a long time talking about, technology and mental health, social health, emotional health. And, there were many years of people wondering what I was doing. There were many years of sort of like, I'm so glad you're doing that kind of thing.
Human side. All right.
Yeah.
Automate.
Yeah.
A bunch of that. And people being like, huh. And it was interesting. It was, really it was the pandemic that made people care about mental health and remote work that made people care about social health. And something I would not have predicted, it was ChatGPT and these human sounding conversations and outputs that made people start to ask what it means to be human, which gets you to emotional health. Finally, people care about and actually are really thinking, what does it mean to be human? What is human? Which leads you to, what do we want it to mean? Who do we want to be? And what are the bigger questions that we need to ask? So, where's it going to be 20 years from now? I have absolutely no idea. But I do know that in the near term, there's some basics that I think we need to have in place around responsible AI, around, what's called neuroliberty and algorithmic liability. So there's some like immediate basics. And then also really turning our attention to what could it mean for us? Because once you get the safety pieces in place, I posed a question the other day and then I'll stop. It was like, my question was, what if 20 million Americans were healed from their childhood trauma in 36 months?
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine the breakthrough that would happen?
And so the reason why that scale of a question is important is because you can't do it without AI. You can't do it using one modality. You can't do it without trust. Like there's like a bunch of pieces that you have to get in place.
Yeah.
But it would also like fundamentally change things, like 20 million Americans. And so it requires that you think in a different way. So, what does 20 years from now look like? I don't know, but there's much to do in the next 5 to 10.
Is that an app? I mean, are you working on that? Like the ability to do that?
No, I'm not working on an app. It would be like what AI allows that's really exciting is that, humans are, life itself is holistic. Everything touches every other thing.
Yeah,
the
100%.
That old, even that old schoolhouse, the ham bone's connected to the thigh bone. Like it's true. Everything is connected. And as humans, I think we're able to feel the connections, but we can't see them, on our own. Developing solutions where it's got all of the behavioral data, all of the bio data, all of the medical data, and then a complement of therapists, who are able to do, everything from nutrition to sleep adjustment. Like I love, there's a new form of psychiatry that's called metabolic psychiatry, where they combine food plus, the drugs that people need. And in a very explicit case, people who suffer from psychosis are able to have lower drug loads by adjustments in their diet. And so the ability to like see all of these slight interactions that, have major effects are one of the things that AI will allow for us to do. And so we're going to be able to get at problems that seemed intractable, in a way that we couldn't before, which is why near term, you have to have responsible AI for you to trust it. We need to have algorithmic liability. So companies, are suable and they have that threat to make them behave a bit more, and some other basic things. And we need some basic rights, such as, like I said, the neuro liberty, which is, your thoughts are your own kind of thing. And so there's a lot of good work in that space by the Neuro Rights Foundation and Nita Farhani.
This is so fascinating.
There's a negative and a positive, especially when you're talking to a therapeutic side of AI. It can be like, it's like a synthetic attention towards you that opens you up in a way, which is good. And then there's the bad side, which is like, am I relying too much on her, like in the movie?
Yeah. Well, I just, before I got on the phone with you I was interviewing Dr. Patty Mays, who runs one of the labs at MIT, and she shared some very interesting research. One, when people do get addicted to chatbots and AI, it's more through texting than voice.
Interesting.
You would think it might be the other way around, but it isn't. Yeah. It's that testing. And I think a lot of it is that, and this is what she thought, was that, when you're writing a lot, there's a lot of imagination on your side because words are so limited. Like actual text is very limited. And so you're inserting your own imagination into it. And that combination of your imagination plus the text forms a stronger bond than if, it's a conversation out loud with a chatbot. And you're not doing all that. You're not adding all that color that is deeply personal to you. So that's one thing that's interesting. The second thing that was interesting was that she was talking, they've done a bunch of research on how quickly people will autopilot and give up critical thinking. And it happens.
Oh, wow.
It happens pretty fast. Yeah. And so one of the solutions that she's been talking about, and also, Khan Academy is doing it for education, is when the AI doesn't give you the answer. Instead, it engages in a dialogue that has much better, like you can't, it's difficult to autopilot in dialogue. And so
it's almost like Mia then. Almost like Mia.
Because your filter. I can use Mia and I can be on with it. And I have my critical thinking for some reason with Mia is a little bit more acute because you hear the voice and the voice kind of sounds a little synthetic. So you're right. When you're typing, I think that part of typing and getting something back is the immediate gratification. You get a dopamine right away.
Yeah, you get a dopamine hit.
And you go, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. So your critical thinking goes,
Yeah. Well, it's also, I think what my conclusion from it is that we actually have to go all the way. And what I mean by that is phones are terrible interfaces, screens are terrible interfaces. I think the move towards voice, eventually you'll only use a screen for something you need to look at. Like if you need to look at something, you'll use a screen, and the best will just sort of, talk it through. And so that's more advanced than where we are today. In addition, a while ago, I did an interview with Decay, He's a AI researcher and also spends time at the Media Lab. But one of the things that he's known for is that it's a lot of his work is the basis of Google Translate. And one of the things he was saying is that he had a concern that the AI regulations in Europe have a line in there that says that AI cannot learn from human emotional data, psychometric and emotional data. It's one of the protections that's in place. And so his point is that because it's been trained on the internet, it already has, all these big models already have human psychometric and emotional data. But if we limit them, then they have the ability to be manipulative without the self-reflection to understand the impact, And so what my conversation with Patty, Dr. Mays says to me is that we actually have to get into the reasoning models, which are more expensive. We have to get to a place where we're actually in dialogue with our AIs as opposed to, one way input and then sort of something coming back for autopilot. So we actually need them to mature and, we need to, get to better interfaces. So it's sort of like if we stay with this early generation of AI, we do kind of risk becoming, dumb, dumb and besotted, and so we actually need to get to the next generation that is, more interesting, more challenging.
I think, Nichol, to your point though, is I think where you're focused, the human piece, is helping humans understand the value of AI, right? Because to your point, a lot of companies are implementing AI, but fewer than, I think some, even MIT says fewer than 50% are actually actively using it. When they embed it, they're having challenges with people actually accepting AI. So do you see any companies that are actually getting this right, where they're focused on investing in the humans and helping them understand that AI is actually a tool to help their humans become more creative and take the business to the next level?
Is that interface you're talking about? Do you think the AI interface is a block?
Well, I mean, the companies that are the most successful at AI implementation based on the measure of having multiple pilots transform into scaled projects that are having a measurable impact, the business as well as whatever other metrics the company is using, whether it's engagement or, solving problems. Let's say it's in an internal services center. And so the organizations that have done that are the ones who understand the most important thing is that AI is not Windows 95. It is not a tech upgrade.
Yeah.
It's not a new SaaS model, or it's not a new CRM. It is a social, cultural, behavioral change. And there's, one way that people do it, which is they just focus on productivity. And then there's another way that people do it where they're really focused on transformation. And so a good way to tell the difference is, so I'll just give you an example. There are still fax machines in healthcare. Like people are still faxing.
Oh, the government still requires us to fax VA stuff. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there's still fax machines. So a productivity approach to fax machines being in existence would be like, how can I fax faster? And it's kind of like, okay, you want to fax faster, and then the transformation is, what does it look like when this fax machine isn't here at all? How do we change that workflow? Exactly. Well, the person who takes care of the fax machine, or the person who takes the paper in and puts it out, or likes that sound, but that's really the difference. And so my other takeaway from my conversation with Dr. Mays is that we actually have to do transformation, because when you really transform the organizations, the one that are successful, many of those organizations have, people doing higher order skills or higher order things, which are, as an entrepreneur on the inside, that finding, new products, new ways to serve the customer, if someone has an entrepreneurial mindset, there's always more interesting things to do. And so one is being an entrepreneur, or the other one is researchers. Their work is really expanding the possibility space. Like that's what they do. They expand the problem space and then push into the possibility space. That's what a researcher, a scientist does. Yeah. And so in both of those cases, it can just, there's more to do that is more interesting. But in order to get there, we have to actually change the workflow. So we have to move from, making the fax machine faster to questioning why it's there at all.
Yeah. Well, speaking of research, so we had a guy on a couple of weeks ago named Jamie Gorman. He runs a chart at ASU. Familiar with him at all?
No, I'm not.
What he's doing. And so this gets into everything you're saying. The human system is a closed system and the machine system is a closed system. And we're trying to merge them overnight. In other words, we're not going into a company like you said, which is kind of like what we do with our program, and first looking at the human system like, well, how well do the teams work? Are they really collaborating right? How well do our leaders work? Are they really connected, not connected? What's the hierarchy? What's going on here? Me and Salim Ismail has talked about the same thing. Like, are we exponential? Are we linear? How is our leadership? How's our anti-fragile resilience? How do we see the future? How do we see innovation? And I don't know. This is the question. Is anybody doing that? Is anybody going in and saying, let's clean up the organization first and then introduce AI? Or do you just feel like everybody's got the new shiny toys and let's all use it?
Well, so the listing of AI as a risk shot up 473% in the SEC filings of last year. So no one has the luxury of waiting. Like that's a luxury.
Sure.
Don't have it. So there are various levels of implementations. But remember, this is very new, this generation of AI. So, there's a lot of AI, but this way where you and I can touch it and use no code tools to build things that we used to have to send to someone else, is brand new. And so 2023 was like, oh my God, what is AI? 2024 was, okay, how do I get started in the beginning of the problems? 2025 is, the entry of agents plus people starting to iterate around to find out what works and what doesn't. And I think the number one takeaway for anyone listening is that this is new for everyone. There are no experts. There are no experts. There are people who are expert at building algorithms, but they're also not running organizations. Like they're doing that thing that they're loving, getting paid a lot of money for it. But for everyone else where AI is touching the world and figuring out what it looks like, there are no experts. The expert is you, your organization. You have to figure it out. And so, with that, there are people who have early signs of things that look good. So we have some things to look at. But the number one thing, to your point, Chris, is that if you have a low trust environment, then you're going nowhere. And part is because, the reason why this technology can't be forced down from the top is that the senior executives, they can say sort of like, oh, we want to be more productive in this area of the business, and we want to have less cost in this area of the business. And they can do top line things, but the workflow that includes that fax machine, a senior executive hasn't done that work in at least a decade, maybe two. So because of that, they don't actually know, they don't know where all the fax machines are. They don't know, how to replace the fax machine. They don't know the context of the fax machine. Just using the fax machine as a metaphor for this thing, which are like, why is this still here? And so the people who know that are the people who are doing the work. And if you have a low trust environment, those people will not tell you. And so as a result, you might get higher productivity. You might increase your efficiency, but you won't get the kind of transformation that will allow you to own markets and to make your customers love you in a way that they could never have imagined, that sort of thing. You won't get that without your people, and you won't get your people without trust.
This is so good, Chris. This is so good, because remember Brian Pittman said, you got tools, trust, and self, right? And everybody's talking about the tools, so wrapped into the tools, but we've yet to really explore the trust. Like, is there a trust factor?
Purpose is on top of that. Purpose and trust, those two words.
Well, and it starts with self. Yeah.
One thing that Gary Hamel talked about, and we had about 3 weeks ago. Gary Hamel, the big management expert guy, he's terrific. And he says that, not only do you have the fax machine problem, but you have 10 layers of bureaucracy. Well, kick it down to him and then kick it up to him. It's like they're still debating it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was, I was talking to, so a friend of mine was talking about being in a meeting, and in the meeting, they were ideating around a product. And in the meeting, one of the people on the team used no-code tools and built the prototype in the meeting. Like, wow. That's just like, and then they ideated around it, and they talked about something they could actually look at. And so that's a small organization, a startup. They're very nimble. But what that means is that historically it used to be 20%, ideation and 80% building and operating. And so it's like, that's where you get things like people saying things like, well, an idea is a dime a dozen. It's sort of like, and that was sort of like the differentiator. But what you're going to start to see with agents and what's happening with software is it's going to flip. It's only going to be 20% building and operating. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 80% ideation, and
that's brilliant though.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
But it requires a different sort of organization. It requires a different sort of person to be able to do that. It's a mindset. And so, I'm convinced that I think the number one survival skill in the age of AI is adaptability, which is more than resilience. It also includes cognitive flexibility and the ability to sort of like counteract. I was just talking to Dr. Michael Platt, who's in charge of Ward Neuroscience, to counteract when humans face uncertainty, we tend to think in a particular way. Fear brings has us think in a particular way.
Yeah.
And so the cognitive flexibility of being able to sort of overcome your sort of like natural biological bias around uncertainty and fear to maintain cognitive flexibility that allows you to be adaptable in this age. So number one is adaptation. That's just for survival. And number two, I think the number one thriving skill is going to be ideation. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah. That's moving people back into the creator mode. That's really what Nichole's talking about.
Victim into creator.
We're moving them out of being robots. Like, we just pump people into this position and do, no, I'm hiring you because you have the ability to be a creator. I think something else that Nichol, you really focused on, but my experiences with our military and veteran family, having spent, close to 2 decades there and being one, is what you're describing is the positive VUCA in a marketplace, the vision, understanding, clarity, adaptability, overcoming the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. That piece is what we're trained in. And I think more and more people have to understand that there's really only 2 types of plans that might work and plans that don't work. So you better figure out how you're going to adapt, right? So I think what you're talking about is pretty brilliant. Chris, as the executive producer for the show, Chris, I have to let you know that we do have a hard stop this time. So I'm going to give you the last question for Nichol.
I tend to just fall in love with the guests. And we're in love with you, as you can see. So I'll do this. If we get like a futurist like Matthew Griffin, I'll go, okay, one more question.
He keeps going. It's so hard to come up. Yeah. So last question, Chris, what do you have for Nichol? Because Nichol, you've been amazing. And again, we could go for hours on this, but.
Well, I mean, I think we should I think she should tell people about Human Tech Week. We didn't get there.
Great.
We always see our fans and we want to get there. So tell people about Human Tech Week. It's exciting.
Great. So in June, I'm organizing an event in San Francisco, June 16th through the 20th. And think of it as a little bit as CES meets Davos, specifically for being human in the age of AI. And so, well-being, performance, and longevity, that's basically preventative health, because, our mental, emotional, and social health, our vitality, also how we collaborate and connect and perform, all of these things are coming into play. And so I built what I was hungry for. What I found a little bit lacking elsewhere is I really want to bring together the people who are thinking, deeply about what does it mean to be human, like you two. What does it mean to be human, with people who are actually building tools to either support our healing, growing, thriving, so the actual tools for it, or people who are thinking about, how all of this comes together. So thinkers and builders in the same space, so we can have this conversation that isn't happening anywhere else. All the AI conferences are very infrastructure. It's basically tools,
Yep.
deals, and tools, deals for tools, which, then it hits the organization and they find out that it's a social, cultural, behavioral change, or, they're abstract and very macro, but the builders aren't there to say, we could try that. We could iterate on that. We could prototype that. And so I just think there's really something for us all to have those, builders and thinkers in the same place, looking at what does it mean to be human in the age of AI.
Well, we're there. We're there.
Totally.
This is our home.
I'm going to see if Nicole's going to let me run around there and just interview people, because this would be so
We'll
fascinating.
bring a little film crew or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and then for everyone, anyone who in the audience who's looking at this or listening to this, we are, of course, looking for, sponsors who really want to invest in the future of humanity. We're looking for people who want to organize events and content so that they can, highlight the conversations that they want to have. And, where there's going to be a lot of people here in San Francisco into what you're into. And so with that, get in touch. It's humantechweek.com, and all of the forms are their own site.
Mike, we could cap this with saying that, we're working on a documentary called The Rise of Humanness in the Age of AI. So that might be a cool place to talk about it and talk to people. And because what we're looking for, Nicole, as a filmmaker, is just the cool stories.
That's good.
Stuff that's going on out there, the real human stories about how it's expanding people, what it's doing, in well-being,
I think it's a very holistic approach. I mean, and Nicole, you've nailed it. You've been so amazing.
Oh, great.
That's such a wealth of information. We want to be sure that people check you out, that they follow you, that they check out Tech Week, Human Tech Week. I think that's so important.
We didn't talk about Sherm enough, though. We didn't talk about Sherm enough.
We didn't, but we're going to just have to have her back on, Chris. And you know what? We'll focus really on what Sherm's doing, because you are so instrumental there, Nicole. But I just want to say, thank you for being on the show, and to our audience, to Nicole's point, be sure that you stay human, stay curious, right? I think that's something that you're really talking about. Chris, what do you have as a parting shot for our audience?
Well, I just have to say that, ROI isn't just automation and algorithms, right? It's that, what Nicole said, it's that human side of a cultural, social change, So, as you said, let's stay human in the age of AI.
Let's stay curious. Nicole, again, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks. My pleasure.
Chris, Nicole was amazing. I mean, what I loved most about that interview is you just took over the show. All I had to do was say, you totally did. It was so good, though, because you asked so many great questions. You pulled some stuff out of Nicole that I think was so important. Like, I wanted to say, oh my gosh, it seems like she's studying Kabbalah, or she's, the interconnectedness of the souls
Well,
so true.
I think what happened is that we bagged all our questions.
Oh, we totally did. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you were responding and I were responding to just the flow of the show and where
Yeah.
she was going with her life.
Yeah.
And you asked that great question about meditation. And so, I mean, I was looking at her questions and I said, we asked two. And we were just responding to
Yeah.
her journey, which was cool. And
I think her journey's so amazing.
yeah. And, it was very fascinating on a soul level, I felt. I mean, I really felt kind of her soul, like how she was really into this for a, very deep seek. She's into
A deep seek. Yeah, let's talk about deep seek that just sunk NVIDIA for $600 billion in market share, right? That, I think what she focuses on though is, she's talking our language, the rise of humans, right?
Oh.
In the age of AI. I mean,
She's a kindred spirit.
it felt
sure.
like she was a plant for what we do. I mean,
Well, she's like family. Oh, it was one of us, She was funny when she did the thing. Oh, nice. Talking about humanness. Great.
well, she was a market disruptor in the early stages. Like this is where things are going. Like she had foresight
Pioneer.
and other people didn't. They just didn't have foresight. And
No.
she did. That's brilliant. I mean, I think that's the thing that we always want to bring to our audiences is people that if they lean in and really study their views, it's like going back in the day, had we just paid attention to Star Trek. And when they came out with cell phones and said, wait a second, that's the telecommunicator, right? That's the communicator thing, right? I'm going to invest in that because I saw it on Star Trek. People could have made a fortune.
Now she said you can ideate that fast. You have the idea for a communicator. You go into agentic AI and you say, I've got this thing and,
And there it is.
boom, it's 3D printed.
So people need to be creative. I think that's a great way for us to wrap.
That's definitely one of our opus, one of our highlight reels there. The thing that first of all, there are no experts.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
And
That hurt me.
you did a great comment on a post, which was like, well, this creative time we're talking about, right, is really just unemployed time,
Right.
Yeah.
We have to define what creative time
Yeah, after you
means.
decide what creative time is it like that's when you don't work, you have a job. You're watching either TV binging or you're watching video games or whatever.
That's what people are going to put on their resume, right? Is
Yeah.
it looks like you had a year-long creative period. What's
Creative
the
time.
creative period?
Yes.
Yeah,
Or
well,
AI.
yeah, I was unemployed.
But she's
right?
saying
Yeah.
that creative time will turn into what your job really is because you'll be using agentic AI if you have the right idea to transform whatever into something else,
Yeah.
and we'll be ideating faster and faster and faster, which is deep seek. Because think about this. If it was $5 million to do the deep seek,
Yeah.
we know how fast the exponential curve works and things get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. What was AI going to become like a big screen TV?
Yeah, probably.
For $100
Yeah, you'll get it.
bucks,
You get it at Costco. Yeah.
you get it at Costco. Yeah. AI
There's
in
a
a
little
box.
AI in a box. So crazy. Chris, we're going to wrap. It's always,
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
yeah, it's, to our audience, guys, plug in. Golly, we love getting some of these guests on the show.
Just
They're
getting
so
rolling. As
amazing.
she said, we're just getting rolling in this Rise of Humanness area.
I know. Yeah, the experts are going to be amazing. So
There you
to
go.
our audience,
Adios.
stay curious
Bye.
and what? Stay curious.
Stay
and
human.
what, Chris? Stay human. All right, guys. See you next time.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast either on Spotify, Podbean. Leave us a review there as well.
Share this episode with your friends and check out the Rise of Humanness on YouTube for bonus clips.
Visit our Facebook community, our website, www.itsvukamax.com. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
The rise of humanness in the age of AI. It's a podcast with Chris and Mike. The rise of humanness in the age of AI. Stay curious, stay human, let's rise.